Hello and welcome. My name is Rashi Mogha and I am your host for this Empowered Women of the World podcast. This podcast is for you, it is for me, and it is for all women who want to take charge of their career and happiness. In this weekly podcast, we'll talk about technology, we'll talk about leadership, and we will talk about mindfulness. We'll talk about how you can discover, visualize, and actualize your success, whatever that means to you. We will also talk about our common opponent, the conscious and unconscious bias, which we deal with on a daily basis. And we'll share ways to navigate work politics. At the end of each podcast, I will share with you a tip or a resource that you can use to be successful. It's going to be a fun ride, so hop on and join me on this journey every week. Now, today's podcast is on how to start something of your own, to be an entrepreneur. There have been times in my career where I have thought about starting something of my own, to be my own boss, work on something that I'm passionate about. And I'm sure you have thought about it too, either in times of frustration when things are not great at work, or when you have a great idea which you think is worth pursuing. But there are various reasons why we decide against starting something of our own. For me, it has always been about the how. How am I going to do something? I have always been passionate about building an intellectual platform for women leaders, but the fear of how I would make it happen always stopped me. Last year, I just woke up one morning and asked my husband, "How does eWOW sound?" And he said, "For what?" I said, "For my new initiative, Empowered Women of the World." And there it was. One thing led to another, and before I knew, eWOW was up and running. So how can you start something of your own without letting yourself stand in your own way? Because you have to try it out to know whether it would work or not. Put the why before the how. Prior to starting eWOW, whenever I would think about an idea, I would immediately start thinking how I would make it happen. Were the resources there? Where will they come from? What hurdles will come my way? I was putting the how before the why. Why did I want to start something? What problem will it solve for the end users? Remember, it's not so much about what the product does or the feature set of the product. It's more about the problem it solves and the value it brings to the end users. With eWOW, it was about empowering the women globally to discover, visualize, and actualize their success through enablement. The product or how didn't matter. There could be various hows. We could achieve it through various hows: podcast, conferences, coaching and mentoring, and a learning platform. The why and the what mattered. We embraced multiple modularities for a global reach. We knew our why, so we were able to experiment with the how, which was the modularities. So if we would have focused on how before the why, we would have got stuck in how to bootstrap. Should we develop our own platform without even giving it a try, the idea a try? The second tip that I have for you is to talk about the problem you're trying to solve. Now, this step is important. How do you know if the problem that you're trying to solve is real and needs to be solved? You will know that by talking to people. Meet as many people as possible and discuss the problem with them. Remember, at this stage, you're only testing if the problem is real. Now, many people shy away from taking input from others because they think that their idea will be stolen. The key is to discuss the problem and possible solutions and not your solution. At this point, you're just gathering data points and understanding if there is a need to solve the problem. And the third tip that I have for you, or the third step, is to prototype your solution. Now, this is the time when you should bounce off your solution with some key people whom you trust. Remember that if you're thinking about a technology startup or an ecosystem startup, you don't need to have a product or a platform ready to prototype. You can always use workflow charts, platform mockups, or product feature set to prototype. In this prototyping stage, you will get a good sense of whether your idea is worth a startup or not. And once you have the confidence and the data to prove that your idea is worth pursuing, you can start worrying about the how. So for some reason, if the data proves that there are already too many players in the market for your solution and you decide not to pursue your idea, at least you would have given it a shot, right? You won't resent later about not testing your idea. So there you go, my friends. If you have a startup idea, go for it and at least test it out. It doesn't take too much in terms of money or effort. But don't wait, because today is the day and now is the time to try something new. And today's free resource for you is a daily success affirmation to keep you going. Say, Alexa, open leadership affirmations to get started. I'm also adding the link in the show notes below. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for loving, liking, supporting, and sharing the podcast. Remember, sharing is caring. I love your feedback, emails, and messages, so please, please, please keep them coming. We now have an audience spanning 23 countries, and our tribe is growing. I look forward to seeing you again in our next podcast. Till then, keep empowering the world.